So your job itself, you were very hands-on for this game and designing the world, designing encounters. Is it kind of that same philosophy of I'm going to drop 2 ghosts over here and a warthog over here, except now you're just in the open world of I'm going to drop some freaky looking unicorn over here? And
it's a question of scale. It's like how long should it take to go from point A to point B? Like it's dividing the world into manageable chunks for both workflow purposes and for the purposes of like I'm a player in this game. I need to know where I'm going, what's important.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of content partitioning. So it's like, okay, how much content do we have here? Where do we distribute it? What kind of content goes where? Like in a big open world game like that, yeah, you need those kind of things made and kind of distributed evenly among the world. Like you got to have stuff to do, and it's got to be easy to get to, and it's got to be memorable. And so it was balancing all that on a big region of the world was my responsibility for a while.
I know you haven't played Elden Ring yet, but I'm going to be so fascinated when you eventually do. I assume you like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Breath of the Wild, just a transformative game. God.
This is okay. You are the person that we want to talk to, Dan, because you are working on a new IP that's an open world game after the success of Breath of the Wild. Is it tough not to constantly reference that? Do you get to walk in and go up to a whiteboard and just write Breath of the Wild style world? Let's go.
Yeah, and it was also a thing after the original Dark Souls came out. Like you have design meetings where we can't talk about Dark Souls. Nobody talk about Dark Souls. We've heard enough about Dark Souls. But it's hard to you want it to be its own thing. The thing you're working on, you want it to have its own identity. So
right,
those conversations are useful when it comes to things like, I want this feeling in the world. I want this feeling of discovery. I want this feeling of I want to evoke these emotions. But it's kind of, for me, it stops when you're like, we need to wholesale take this system and try to shoehorn it into the game.
Right.
Like that's the challenge. You have to evoke those feelings without going too in a way that your game is good at expressing them.
Don't you have moments though of just saying, can we just make this fully open? Can we make this game to the point that you can go anywhere out of the gate and just how do you encourage that level of exploration and immersion in an open world versus let's just guide players from point A to point B?
Yeah, it's always a trade-off because when you're trying to make a more story-driven game, like you have to have those beats that you hit. You have to have those gating points that say, okay, we're delivering this piece of the narrative here, which explains the context of this next thing over here.
Right.
So there's that part of it, and then there's also the technical aspect of it, which is like if it's this open, then it's got to look this much worse. Like you have to make those compromises.
Right.
Where you can. So and it's also about what's the word I'm looking for? Not stepping on anyone's toes, like in terms of design has to have what they want, so we're going to impose this mandate on art or effects or any other team. It's knowing where your level of influence kind of tops out. And like I was saying before about Japanese structures,
right?
Yeah, you have to do a good job of convincing the director, like, okay, this is the best course of action.
So when you are working on a project and one of the first bullet points is we want to tell a compelling story, then it's like, okay, that's limiting how we can structure this open world. We have to live with it.
Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, it's this thing has to happen in this sequence before we introduce this thing, and that makes it a little tougher. Breath of the Wild had the benefit of saying, it's a more freeform experience. You can take it on in any order you want. But I hear a criticism of that game is like, the narrative wasn't as strong as I would have liked it. But
look, it's like, is it suffering for it? No, I mean it's the same thing with Elden Ring. You look at the level of enthusiasm for these games, and it's like, I'd hate to tell the game industry, how about we take storytelling down a notch, but at times I want to tell the game industry to take storytelling just down a notch or just be a little more subtle with it, right?
I totally get it. Yeah. But then you have people like when Destiny launched, all your lore is in little cards.
Right.
You go to a website and look at. So it's definitely a balancing act there. And I think the holy grail, right now is Breath of the Wild. And I'm just always thinking of ways to what's the next step? Like what's the next? Because we have a reactive world with Breath of the Wild. We have these incredible systems.
Yeah.
What's next after that? That's the question.
You should play Elden Ring.
I can't. My computer's in a shipping container from Tokyo.
You'll get to
it won't be here till July.
Oh, that's torture. Hey, you're working on a new game, man. You got to get researching the best out there. But anyway,
absolutely.
So do you feel like you managed to inject a little Breath of the Wild magic in Forspoken? Are there parts that you look back on that you managed to build and it's like, okay, I think there's something that I built in there that's reminiscent of some of that magic?
Yeah, I think what people are going to notice first and foremost, and this is something you see in the trailers, so I'm not spoiling anything, but the mobility systems are great.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we called it magic parkour, and just the traversal feels unlike anything else out there. I think the freedom of movement you have to climb and swing and do those kind of cool Breath of the Wild exploratory things, I think it's there. I don't want to go into too much detail. I don't know what I can say, but
sure.
But yeah, I think that's something we really succeeded with. The sense of how do you manage this scale as just a human running around, and how do we solve those problems, and how do we make it fun to traverse this world and explore the way you want to explore. Super looking forward to seeing people get their hands on it.
If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.